Illinois Supreme Court upheld the state's ban on the sale of quote-unquote assault weapons. 4-3 ruling came down this morning. Here's a Highland Park shooting victim. Very happy about the decision.
This bill was written with constitutionality in mind. It was based on bills in other states where the same ban has been upheld. And so I'm just grateful for the Illinois Supreme Court following along with precedent and doing the right thing.
The decision came in a lawsuit brought earlier this year by Illinois lawmaker Dan Calkins.
When you have a Supreme Court where the last two justices that were elected benefited greatly from political contributions from the governor, it's really hard to be realistic.
Notably, the High Court did not rule today on whether the ban violated the right to bear arms in the state's constitution. There's a corresponding federal suit making its way through that system. Instead, the majority opinion stated the ban did not violate the equal protection and special legislation clauses of this state constitution. The court's two Republican justices said the ban should be overturned because they believe the legislators had failed to follow a constitutional requirement that the bill be read on 3 different days in each chamber. In a separate dissent, Justice O'Brien, one of the new justices, said she believed the provisions of the law will fail to do what its supporters want it to do. In other words, it won't do any good. She said, quote, "I find they do not and will not reasonably remedy the evils the legislation is designed to combat." That's worth talking about. Will it do any good whatsoever? Let's start there with retired Chief Tom Weitzel, retired after 17 years as chief and 37 years on the streets of Riverside. He's our go-to guy for law enforcement. Tom, welcome back. How are you, sir?
Yeah, very good. Thanks for having me.
Your general thoughts on the Illinois Supreme Court upholding the state assault weapons ban?
I wasn't surprised. I'm more surprised that it was 4-3 vote, but I thought it would be upheld because I do believe that it's constitutional. And as you rightly pointed out in one of the victims from Highland Park, it is constitutional. It's been ruled constitutional in other states. So I was pretty confident that they would uphold it.
Illinois Rifle Association, I've heard earlier today, is confident that the U.S. Supreme Court will overturn this.
That may very well be on the federal level. But, in Illinois, let's face it, just after the Highland Park mass shooting, so that's when the legislation was drafted, and they were under pressure, I think, to draft legislation like that. And they were really going after AR-15s. I mean, that's what the legislation, if you read into it, that's really the type of weapon they were going after. So I really thought that they had a wide range of public support for that, too.
As a law enforcement veteran, in your mind, in general, do police officers generally support open carry? In other words, I see it in many red states. You can carry not only a handgun, but a rifle as well, a long gun. Bring it with you. It's open carry. In general, what does the law enforcement community think about that? Does it help or hinder?
I think it hinders. I think most law enforcement officers are not in favor of open carry. Concealed carry may be legally concealed carry may be a different issue, but I've also been in states. I was in New Mexico at a Starbucks, and the person standing in front of me in line had a holster on like you'd see out of the Wild West, and had a 6-shot in his holster standing in front of me when I was in New Mexico recently, and it was like nothing. I mean, I was the only one that was surprised when I walked in. Everyone else, because I was an out-of-towner, everyone else just treated it like it was normal.
But we do hear stories, and just to be clear, even retired law enforcement, current and retired law enforcement in Illinois will still be able to have their AR-15s or whatever has now been exempted. They're grandfathered in, and they can carry, obviously. But let's go down to your New Mexico situation. We do hear stories on how Good Samaritans intervene if they have a weapon. They can stop a horrific event from happening.
Yeah, there's no doubt that there's been stories about not only stopping events, but their own personal protection. There's also been many documented cases where they have also been shot in exchange of gunfire. Innocent people have also been shot. And in a few instances, even law enforcement have shot a concealed carry holder or open carry in not knowing that was not the offender. There's documented cases like that have happened throughout the nation, too.
I know. Do you think I feel that a state that allows concealed carry, it does act as a deterrent, just as a deterrent, because the carjacker, and I know they get the drop on you. It's always the recommendation. I just talked to somebody about this last week. If somebody puts a gun to your forehead and wants your car, give them the car. But that being said, do you think that states that do have rather liberal, for lack of a better descriptor, concealed carry laws, do you think it acts as a deterrent to the criminal element? Yes or no?
Yes, especially ones that have tight regulations. I mean, you're trained, you're licensed, you go through firearms training as you do here in Illinois. You know, in some states you don't do that. Florida just passed a law where basically anybody can carry.
Let's go pick it up.
So
go pick it up,
training.
buy a holster, carry it, go to the gas station.
Yeah, I don't think that's wise, but I do believe it does act as a deterrent to states that have very good regulations and requirements in place.
Are you still getting people angry with your op-ed from, I think a few months ago, where you said, you know, states' attorneys and sheriffs don't have the latitude to say, well, I'm just not going to enforce that law because I disagree with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I had some of my colleagues didn't like it. They just thought I should just support law enforcement in general, just this wide stripe. But my point when I wrote that op-ed in the Sun-Times was we can't, as law enforcement, you can't pick and choose what laws you're going to enforce or laws that you like you're going to enforce. You need to go about it through legislative processes. So if you don't like the law that was passed, you have to lobby. Your organizations need to lobby to change it. But to say that I'm not going to enforce the gun laws that are on the books and then publicly hold news conferences is ludicrous. I think it's just wrong.
We've talked about this. It's one thing you're a county sheriff. It's like, look, I'm way downstate here. I'm not going to go to every Tom, Dick, and Harry's home and check. But, you know, that's the law. And, we'll make it work here. We're going to enforce the law. But I'm going to be judicious in how I utilize my manpower regarding this. I accept that. That's what I want a sheriff to do based on what's going on in his county. But I don't like the guys coming out for their own political purposes, pontificating. I disagree with this law. I will not be enforcing this law. I think that's a dereliction of duty, honestly.
So do I. And think about what that does to the people they lead, the officers. You're telling them not to enforce laws. I mean, where does that stop? Does that stop at DUIs? Does it stop at domestic batteries? I mean, where does that stop? It's really a slippery slope.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, have a great weekend. Thanks for popping on a Friday afternoon. I know you could be barbecuing or something.
All right, thanks a lot, John. Have a great weekend.
Take care, you too. Retired Chief Tom Weitzel joining us from Riverside.